there YouTube, welcome back to Amateur Dabbler's Kitchen. I got another recipe for you today. I just stopped yesterday and picked up a dozen bagels, and one of my favorite things to eat with a nice New York style bagel is pastrami. We unfortunately here where I live in Southwest Florida do not have any delicatessens that serve a good pastrami. So I make my own, and this is pretty much a cheap version of pastrami. Easy way to make it at home without having to deal with smoking the meat and things of that nature. Comes together pretty quickly. Does take a long time to cook. Won't actually be ready till tomorrow, but it is very, very simple and easy to do. And I'd like to share with you today my quick, simple recipe on how to do so. So the first thing we need to do is put together a dry rub, and I have my oven preheating to 225 degrees right now. So into the dry rub is 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of ground coriander, 1 teaspoon of dried mustard, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. You want to make sure that you are using the smoked paprika and not just regular paprika, because this is what's going to give the pastrami that smoked flavor. Like if you were to actually smoke it in a smoker outside, this will give it the illusion that it has been smoked. You got to make sure it is a smoked paprika though. We are also going to need it here 1/4 cup of coarsely ground black pepper. So what I've got here are the peppercorns, a coffee grinder which I've repurposed into a spice grinder. You want to make sure that you never put coffee in here once you start using it for spices, because your coffee will end up tasting like basically spiced coffee. So get yourself 2, 1 for your coffee if you're grounding your coffee, and keep this one separate strictly for spices. So into here, we're just going to go with the pepper. You could buy this pepper already ground up if you'd like. Just make sure you get the coarse kind. So give it a nice, just roughly coarse chopping. And once again, that's 1/4 cup of black pepper, coarsely chopped. And now we're just going to give this a whisk to combine everything. And that's really it for the dry spice rub. We are also now going to need something to coat the meat with, basically to get the dry rub to stick. You could use just regular oil, a neutral oil like grapeseed, or in my case I'm using canola, and we're going to go in here with probably about a tablespoon of canola oil, and then also to that we are going to add about 1 tablespoon of just regular mustard, store-bought yellow mustard, any brand of your choosing. About a tablespoon of that. Go ahead and whisk those two to combine. So what you're seeing here now on the tin foil that I have laid out on the counter is a 3-pound corned beef. So this is the pre-made corned beef. They're ready to cook. You buy it in the supermarket. The amount of rub that I made would probably go up to like a 6-pound. I just bought a 3-pound because it's really only myself and my wife this weekend. No kids, so this will be just enough for us to each have, you know, a few sandwiches and enjoy the rest of the weekend. So 3 pounds. You want to make sure that you leave the fat cap on here. And what we're going to do now is basically take our mustard and oil mixture and we are going to paint the outside of the corned beef. Make sure to get all 4 sides because we're going to be seasoning all 4 sides, and this is going to help that dry rub adhere to the corned beef. Okay, so I've got that 3 sides now painted up nicely, and we're just going to go in and you want to be very, very liberal with your dry rub. Don't skimp on this. This is, you know, this is where you're going to get all that nice crust from and wonderful flavors. And go ahead now and pat that in. Make sure you're pushing it down into the mustard. Go ahead and get the sides. You want to make sure that you're using, you know, a lot of this rub, but you're also going to want to make sure that you have a couple of tablespoons of this reserved for later, and I'll show you why. Actually reserved for tomorrow. Go ahead and give this guy a flip. Paint the bottom side. You want to make sure when you're doing this, when you start, you want to start with that fat cap down, because we're going to be wrapping this several times, and you want to end up with that fat cap facing up before it goes into the oven. So painted the last side. Go ahead and steal some of this rub here that was spilled. And once again, we're just going to pat that in. Check the sides again. Make sure that this is fully coated. And if you have some extra dry rub there on a foil, it does not matter. You can go ahead and leave it there. And I forgot to mention, probably a good idea also to put this onto some kind of a cookie sheet before it goes in the oven. We do have this sealed up pretty well, but just in case some of those juices do get out of there, you don't want to have a mess going on in your oven. Okay, so what's been a second for you has been 6 hours for me. House smells awesome. We're going to go ahead and take the pastrami out of the oven now. I did not lose any juices, so the tinfoil obviously did its job. And what I'll do now is just let this sit here and cool, maybe half hour, 40 minutes, and then it will go in the fridge overnight. And I will be back in another second for you, which will be tomorrow morning for me. So it is now the day after. It is Sunday afternoon. I started making everything yesterday, Saturday morning. We got the roast is come out of the oven. It's cooled overnight in the fridge, and there's just a couple more steps now just to complete the process. So here is the brisket. We're going to go ahead and unwrap this. See, there's a little bit of juice. This is going to come out wet. I like to do one additional step to this before we go ahead and steam it. Cookie sheet in here with a rack in it, and we're going to go fat cap down on here this time as opposed to up. Remember, we cooked the fat cap up. We want it down this time because we are going to finish making a crust on this guy. We reserved that little bit of dry rub, so basically we got the wetness there. Just going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit more of this on the top. Try to get some of the sides. And it'll absorb that moisture. And this is going to go under the broiler for around probably just 2 to 3 minutes, just until that dries out and gets a nice crust. While I got the pastrami going under the broiler, I've put a pot on with about 1 inch of water there in the bottom. You don't need a lot. We're basically just going to steam the roast or the pastrami once it's out, and then we'll be ready to go. We'll slice the whole thing, we'll put it in a sandwich, and we will enjoy the heck out of it. So it's been about 3 minutes now. The pastrami should be nice and ready, as you can see hopefully there. It's got a nice crust on it. So as you can see here, I've got the insert put in there. You see all the steam coming up, the pastrami's in there. just covering it with a plate, and we'll let this go now for 10 minutes and it will be all ready to go. So the pastrami is out of the steamer, and the next thing we got to do is just slice this up as thinly as possible to get it ready to go for the sandwich. I got a nice carving knife here. Just make sure whatever knife you're using is very, very sharp. You see it's looking pretty nice there. So meat is all sliced up. I just picked this cool little gadget up at Amazon.com. This is a bagel guillotine. I wish I would have discovered these things a long time ago. Just taking a poppy seed bagel, putting it in here. You put this on and go right down, and it slices your bagel in half perfectly. Now traditionally, you would eat this sandwich on rye bread. I prefer mine on a bagel. Not to say that having it on rye bread is wrong, which I do occasionally, but I picked up some nice bagels the other day, which was my inspiration to make this recipe. So I am eating mine today on a poppy seed bagel. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the microwave for 20 seconds just to warm the bagel up as well, and then we'll go ahead and put everything together and give it a try.